Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here to speak about the Chinese economy because these days, economists, when they get on a stage, it all looks a little bit dismal and gloomy after we finish. But with China, that isn't going to be the case. I'm going to try and outline for you some of the biggest changes that have been happening in China and the world economy as it has begun to really take center stage. And I'm told if I stick to time and I'm very good, I'll have 5 minutes for Q&A with you as well. So I better press on. So the future of China, I think the question I've posed here is that can it actually lead Asia and even more ambitiously, the world economy? I gave you a hint of how the world looks like from the West right now. A lot of debt, a lot of very slow growth. We just heard the Chancellor today at midday telling us that growth is going to be really slow next year. So we're really looking to see whether or not there are economies in the world that can persevere. And I'm going to show you the reasons why in which China has a very good chance of growing very quickly, but also why it itself has a great deal of challenges as well. So the outline of my presentations, I'm going to go through the rise of China and Asia. I'm going to highlight some of the limits of growth that became very apparent during the last global financial crisis, and it's really caused China to have a change of heart. And then finally, its impact in the 21st century. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, in the 21st century, this is how it might look. So the very first thing to say is that it is the fastest growing emerging economy. In fact, it's the fastest growing major economy. Even if you don't have your glasses in the back, that is China on the very top line. And I think one thing which is very important to note is that this decade is the very first decade in which the world economy is going to grow faster than that of Europe and the United States. It's always been the case that the world economy is essentially driven by the United States and by Europe. But what you can see here is that the world economy is actually faster. It's being lifted by emerging economies such as China, but also India and Brazil that you heard about earlier. This is China rising. Now, you really don't need your glasses to see that line. And I suppose I'm going to give you a context for this growth rate. If you take the number 70 and you divide it by the growth rate, it gives you the number of years it takes for an economy to double in size. So China has been growing at nearly 10% for 30 years. So its economy doubles in size every 7 years. So when that growth rate, that's how you make sense of the growth rate as to why it is a very small difference between, say, 10% growth rate and 5% looks respectable. Even 3% is not bad. It makes a massive difference in terms of your standards of living, in terms of the size of the economy.